So money-wise, it's working out, is what you're saying, basically.
It's fucking unbelievable. Not only is it unbelievable money-wise, it's been unbelievable as far as social media goes. We're number one in all of sports. And when I say all of sports, if you take the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, F1, WWE, and who am I forgetting, and added them all together, their numbers don't compare to Slaps.
So here's the thing. I believe every word Dana just said, but it's also not factually accurate, and I'm going to tell you why. I think if we are going to have any common understanding of the analytics terms necessary to truly critique Dana's words, we're going to need an example. And I happen to have just that. My most infamous video, the UFC has a major gambling problem. James Krause is only the beginning, or simply the gambling video as I call it, is a perfect tool for dissecting how surface level analytics tell an entirely different story than when we really parse through what lies beneath. Let's start with the surface level data from the gambling video. At the time of this writing, the video has been viewed 357,033 times in the 153 days since I published it. Here's where we get to the level of data that Dana used when describing Power Slap's viewership data. Think of that number, 357,033 people, as sort of a spectrum. On one side of the spectrum, anyone looking at that number could say, sure, it has that many views, but how do I know anyone actually watched? 357,033 people could have accidentally clicked on it, right? While hyperbolic, it is a valid critique, right? So what I would counter with is some data that goes beneath the surface. The data that YouTube provides me shows that viewers have spent a combined 132,216.5 hours consuming the content. We now have data context that disproves their argument, right? So let's flip to the other side of the spectrum, the one that Dana is residing in. I can technically make the argument that 357,033 individual people watched this video from start to finish, right? How would we disprove that? We would do it through two main data points. One is the watch time figure from before. So let's do a little math. The video in its totality is 93 minutes and 23 seconds. If we multiply that by total views, we get a rounded total of 555,682 hours of total watch time possible. With those numbers, we can prove that on average, each person that clicks on the gambling video will watch approximately 1/4 of the total video, right? See how quickly one number can change the entire perception of the story? My argument goes from 357,033 people watched my video to at best 357,033 people watched 25% of my video. The second data point that could disprove the initial thesis is a handy metric YouTube provides creators, although only for 90-day spans. Let's look how many viewers were unique views for the video over the first 90 days after release, when the vast majority of people consumed the content. The numbers are rounded to about 250,100-ish unique viewers, meaning that of the 353,439 views during that 90-day span, 30% of my total views were people rewatching the content. Do you see how the age-old saying, numbers never lie, is ultimately a bit of a short-sighted statement? With this in mind, I think it's important to cover one last data point that is crucial for our following analysis. When I likened Dana's comments to that of my gambling video's view count, I was likely being somewhat charitable. I have a strong suspicion that he is conflating the concept of impressions and views. Here is how I would muddy the waters if I was forced to make a PR pitch to an investor or someone that my gambling video was worth more than it actually is. What the media doesn't want you to know is that our gambling video is in fact seen by substantially more people than they are reporting. Our metrics show that the video has been seen by 5,387,674 people to be exact. But you, the conscious consumer of information, says, wait a minute, MMAI. There's no way that's true.
You can't handle the truth!
Look at this data you see on screen now. And indeed, the data does in fact state that 5,387,674 people have seen my video's thumbnail and 2.8% of them actually click on the video. The remaining 97.2% just scroll past it on their YouTube timeline, never to think of it again. You see how you could be quote-unquote wrong based on data, but in actuality the person feeding you that data is being completely non-transparent? And this is why I bring up one last fact to you. There is a quote that I try to live my life by. Never attribute to malice that which can be adequately explained by ignorance. This is what is known as Hanlon's razor. In my opinion, Dana is telling the truth as he sees it, or as it is being told to him, but it is obscuring the greater truth of the situation. Of course, because it's an MMAI video, it's a lot more complicated than it looks on the surface. Let's listen to one more quote from Dana to contextualize the rest of our conversation.
Also getting into the slap fighting promotion, not exactly how you probably envisioned it working in the bids, some good, some bad, a lot of, publicity, negative, your own issues as well. How is this playing forward into the next season? We saw promotions of it on there.
It's been incredible. The deal that I just cut for Slap is bigger than the UFC deal we cut with Spike TV after the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't give a shit what the media says about it. They don't matter.
I again think this is absolutely true. The easy ways to attack this is to make various points on inflation and the value of the dollar, but in the end that too is just sort of window dressing to the reality of what is happening. Let's talk about the company Rumble that paid more money than Spike did after the Ultimate Fighter success. Alright, so some quick hits on the history of Rumble. It was founded in 2013 by Chris Pavlovsky to be an alternative to YouTube for independent content creators. With the rise of the Paul brothers, YouTube was becoming a space rife with clickbait and vlog content that choked out viewership for up-and-coming creators, and Chris wanted to fix that. They made little to no impact on the greater content creation space until the pandemic, when Google began cracking down on misinformation, forcing certain creators off the platform. Rumble swooped in to gobble them and their audiences up, which finally legitimized the business model to an extent. Rumble essentially rebranded itself into an expressly right-wing alternative to Google-owned YouTube. Rumble continued to grow on the back of the right-wing exodus from YouTube, prompting venture capital investments from the likes of Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance, who sought to invest in the growing network on the ground floor. As is true with YouTube, independent creators provide revenue, but the big money comes in exclusive streaming deals. YouTube has branched into TV programming with YouTube TV while signing deals with multiple networks like CNN to broadcast their content live online. Rumble followed in their footsteps, but hit the natural roadblock that most right-wing alternatives to mainstream products hit. It is relatively toxic for brands to be seen as catering to a specifically right-wing audience. I will leave you to debate the ethics, legitimacy, etc. of this truth, but in the end it's proven out in the data. And numbers never lie, right? So, Rumble is sitting on a pile of venture capital cash with nothing to spend it on because brands don't want to accept their money due to the brand toxicity element. Any smart businessman will realize the predicament Rumble is faced with, right? Dana and the Fertittas certainly did. After TBS dropped their streaming deal with PowerSlap at the end of the first season, they needed to find a new partner for the promotion. By Dana's own words, they dropped a bag of cash and a Godfather deal to try and lock in the rights to the viral content hit that is slap fighting. Now, nothing I have said should be particularly controversial, but if you read between the lines, you can see the truth. TBS dropped slap fighting because of the toxic nature of the brand, and Rumble is desperate for any and every social media hit that will accept their massive bags of cash. Dana and the Fertittas are using Rumble in the exact same way that Endeavor and the UFC are using ESPN. They drop a bag of cash for streaming rights, and the executives reap the monetary benefits. Dana brings this up earlier in the same post-fight presser.
Speaking of cross-promotionals, I saw the UFC Twitter account retweeted a couple weeks ago a promotion from a skateboarding championship series.
Right.
There was a few connections we noticed. It was on Rumble, so with the slap fighting, there was that tit for tat, perhaps. And it turns out that Lorenzo Fertitta is one of the owners of that league or of one of the promotions in that. I'm not sure the exact details of that. What was the UFC's decision to do that? Was this like a favor for a friend? Does Endeavor have a part in this?
Lorenzo and I own it.
You're in a part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We own a company called Throw One. We own Ridiculousness, we own SLS, we own Nitrous Circus, and we own Travis Pastrada's NRX Rally Car.
But in the end, what does this mean for the UFC? For one, just how many other companies is Dana running concurrently that we don't know about? But to me, the most important takeaway from this is the following. Whenever I make a critique of Dana's wording or decisions, I inevitably get some form of response quoting dollar figures as a measure of success. Those that view money-making as a measure of success miss the greater picture of the reality of business. When you chase dollars at the expense of long-term brand vision, you miss the boat on greater expansion of said dollars. This is an encapsulation of my overall argument about fighter pay. It's not just about taking advantage of fighters, it is also hampering the sport's growth long term. If we view the success of MMA in purely dollars and cents, then we miss the opportunities to grow the sport in ways that don't get captured in profitability analytics, right? This is the great secret of data. It's not purely numbers, but what they say that truly makes data such a powerful tool when held in the hands of a true visionary. If you take anything from this video, I would recommend looking past the macro data that is served up to you and realize that just because something may be quote-unquote true doesn't mean it represents the reality of a situation. Be mindful of those who tell you otherwise. I will leave you with a final quote from Dana.
The good thing is that most of you guys don't understand social media and how it works.
I mentioned this over on our Twitter account, which you can find in the description, but I would like to put out some shorter form shareable content like this more often to make my long form videos more efficient while diving deeper into the key concepts at the heart of MMA. This video is the first in a series investigating the systems at play in every decision made in the MMA landscape. Of course, a specific focus will be on the UFC, but in the end, it's about MMA as a whole. Next Monday, I will have another one of these out breaking down what Francis's deal means at a deeper level than just facts and figures. Most importantly, the strategic vision MMAI has for the best execution of Francis's stated goals. I also released a companion podcast over on our Patreon for $5 patrons, which you can find a link to in the description. Come listen to how Colby Covington and Sean Strickland fit into the larger conversation around the data points I just made.
From Betty Crocker, it's the most exciting thing you can do with the inside of a cake. Introducing the Betty Crocker Bacon Fill, a delightful new pan that lets you